Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia SBDC's webinar series, Google and Beyond, Marketing and Managing on the Web. This series is designed to take a look at tools and techniques to help small businesses take their business to the next level. Today's webinar is Social Media Time Management for the Busy Entrepreneur. All of our Google and Beyond webinars are presented by Ray Sidney Smith of W3 Consulting, a web and mobile strategy and training consultancy firm for small businesses. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those questions into the question window, and Ray will do his best to answer them. Without further ado, here's Ray Sidney Smith.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the Virginia SBDC Network for having me here for Social Media Time Management for the Busy Entrepreneur, and welcome everyone to the webinar. Today, if you have any questions subsequent to the webinar, feel free to go ahead and reach out to me on Twitter. You can do that via my handle, which is W3 Consulting. You can hashtag these Google, Beyond Google, and we'll be using that hashtag throughout the entire series if you have any questions about the webinars in general. So what I'd like to do is just talk about what we're going to talk about today. And I know that for many of you, you're either hesitant to jump into social media, or you are busy entrepreneurs who are actually excited and using social media in some way, shape, or form, but maybe feeling a little bit run ragged by the fact that there's a new social media being born every couple of hours, and that there is always seemingly something that you can do to make your social media presence better. So the reality is that social media can be all-consuming if you let it. As well, it can be very fruitless without a strategy to manage success and how much time you invest. So today, what I want to really determine for you is what is the best strategy for small business generally in terms of social media, so that you can reduce unnecessary activities. I think one of the things that people tend to do are lots of unnecessary activities because they want perhaps perfection in their social media presence, or they want some kind of other component that is not needed for your business to not only survive but thrive. And we know that social media is no longer just a fad, a flash in the pan. It is here to stay. And it is a huge part of marketing right now, and you're going to have to get used to that. And by getting used to that, I really mean that you're going to have to be comfortable with embracing your customers and your community. So I'm not quite sure what just happened on my screen, but we're just going to hop right back over to the presentation. Is the presentation back on screen? Anyone want to let me know?
Yes, it is, Ray.
Either way, if you can't.
Yes,
okay,
it is.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to determine what the best social media strategy is for your business so we can reduce those unnecessary tasks. We're going to talk about some methods and skills, and I'm going to geek out because I get to talk about one of my favorite topics in the world, which is personal productivity. And then we're going to talk about some of the tools that are out there, and I lay out just a few short tools, just a few tools that will do the majority, 80 to 90% of the work that you'll need them to do outside of the actual social network that you'll be in and using directly so that you can use social media more effectively. So with that, let's jump right in. Let's talk about strategy. What is strategy? Many people come to me and they say, wow, Ray, you're a web and mobile strategist. What is that? And I get it. It's really difficult to understand sometimes what all of those technical terms and the jargon mean. But as a web and mobile strategist, my job for you is to help you understand how to implement the, sorry, my screen keeps jumping back and forth, technical difficulties. So my job is to help people understand that there are things that you can do, but without a plan on top of those things that you're doing, it's like the blind leading the blind. So here, a strategy really is the idea that you're taking pieces, you're planning before you're executing, and you're taking these techniques, skills, strategy, skills and tactics to be able to create a strategy that will work for you. Okay, so I'm not quite sure what's going on with the jumping back and forth with the screen, but we're just going to keep working with it. So first and foremost, let's talk about preparing a social media strategy. One of the first things that you need to figure out when it comes to strategy, just across your entire business, but specifically here we're going to talk about social media, is what is or are your goal or goals? Many times people think, well, I need social media to market my business. Well, yes, here is a big part of the marketing world as a business generally. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it is for your business. You really need to sit back, take that breather. I know that you're busy. I know that things are going on in the world. I know that you have a business to run. But you have to take that pause for a moment to really think about what are your goals as it relates to social media. For some people, those goals are just brand awareness. They're not actually trying to create sales necessarily out of social media. For some people, it's all about sales. It's cash in the door, cash in the register. And if that's the case, then be honest with yourself about what that goal is. Create a number. Figure out what you're looking to get out of your sales from social media, because there are some things that you need to be realistic about. And then the other side to that is customer service, notwithstanding my little typo. But customer service there is, social media can be a great tool and strategy for your customer service. What your goal is out of this is to be able to engage with your community. Social media is about engaging with your community. How do you expect the business to benefit from you engaging with your community? Okay, and what I mean by community is the number of strata that build up to all the people who touch your business. So that starts on, if you work internationally, it's with people from outside of the country, to federal government, to state and local government, to your vendors, marketing alliances, your industry organizations, if you have a professional trade association or something like that, to your potential customers, your future customers, your past customers, and your current customers that you're currently servicing. So think about all of those various layers of people that are in your world. That's your community. And social media can't really speak to all of them all of the time. So your goal needs to be really specific and needs to get into how are you going to use this particular social network or social media generally to get at them, okay? And what's going to provide you the most bang for your buck, okay? And if you decide that you have lots of customers online, but your particular type of business doesn't align you with being able to really extract sales from social media, then stick to the traditional marketing methods. Go back to advertising, go back to PR, go back to referral network marketing, go back to those things that are going to work. Traditional sales, whether that's banging on doors or going to networking events and doing other kinds of marketing activities. Those marketing activities should not be shirked and subrogated for social media strategy. You need to understand what and how social media can work for your business and do it the best you can, but know its limitations as well as your business's opportunities and potentially threats in the SWOT analysis world as it relates to social media. Okay, so define a goal and then make it really specific, because if you can make it really specific, then you can get rid of all of the chafe that makes everyone get so harried about, well, I need to speak to these 3 different demographics. I need to be able to speak to my stakeholders, whether they be shareholders or investors or angels, and I need to get myself sort of, talking to all of these people on social media. The reality is that you don't have enough arms and you don't have enough brains to be able to do all of those things. You need one goal at a time, and then if you do have more than one goal, be very specific about which social media tools you're going to be using for them, which platforms you're going to be on, and how you're going to effectively manage those given your resources. That's time and money. So what in terms of time and money do you have to be able to make those things happen? Next up is, what does your customer want or need? Now, I'm prefacing this with the sort of huge caveats that you've decided social media is a place where you're going to be able to speak to your customer. Okay, whether they be current or future customers, and potentially past customers if you want to convert them to customers again. But the idea is that you're going to go after your customers here. So, what does your customer want or need? You can replace that with stakeholders. You can replace that with industry partners or referral network, whatever you want. But what do they want or need? And the answer there typically is ask them. One of the things that I find so fascinating is that many times we feel sort of reticent or hesitant to go out there and ask our audiences what they want, thinking that they believe that we're clairvoyant or we are soothsayers. And in reality, we really are not. And when we do guess in those broad ways, sometimes we hit the mark, and that can be really wonderful and fun. But this business, and we need to be able to reduce our risk, okay? So the way we reduce our risk is by going out there and asking our customers, asking our audiences what they're looking for. Now, you may not always be and have already an audience to listen to you. You know, if you're a startup and you feel like, I don't have anyone to ask yet, I'll talk about some ways in which we can do that later in the presentation. But you do have an audience. You do have a place where you can ask, especially now that social media is so pervasive in the world. You know, almost everyone that is in your network probably has a social, has a phone, and most of them activate and engage in social media through their phone throughout the day. So we know that people are using their phones. We know that a large majority of those people are using their phones. 72% saturation in the United States in terms of cell phone saturation, and the smartphone market is dominating and taking over. Basically, the manufacturers who create phones are reducing the volume of what we call feature phones, phones that are not smartphones, phones that maybe flip phones with just a keypad. Those phones are going away on purpose to push smartphones forward in the market so that every person has a smartphone in the next 2 years. So in the next 2 to 5 years, then we can probably conservatively say that we'll all have smartphones in our pockets. And when we have that kind of power in our pockets and in our hands throughout the day, we are definitely going to want to socialize, and social media is the tool that we've been given to be able to do that. So ask your audience what they want. Next up in the social media strategy, the triumvirate of pieces. Find out what your goal is, figure out what your customer wants, and then finally, where are you directing traffic? Now, this is one of those things that I don't have a lot of time to talk about, but I'm going to give you this quick and dirty answer to this, which is that you direct traffic from your social media engagement, and you use your strategy to be able to direct traffic somewhere, okay? And one of the things that people typically do when they're trying to manage their time is they're trying to generate lots and lots of content, and that content strategy is out there to be able to make people do something. Remember that people are innately thinking socially. That is, we're not thinking sales when we're in social media. So you're going to hear someone who says, oh, I make lots and lots of money from using social media. Well, that's great, except that might not be the case on a very fundamental level. When we look at the sort of under the hood of the vehicle that is social media, what's happening is that person's not getting direct phone calls from their social media activity. They're not getting direct sales in terms of someone clicking buy now on their social media profile. What they're doing is that they're converting those people, they're moving them from one particular place to another particular place. That particular place is typically a website that's outside of the social network or the social media platform in general. So what I want you to do is to think about your business. You've built a website. If you haven't built a website, my recommendation is to, of course, set up a website. And from there, you're going to create a website that is going to be able to convert people into customers. So the target audience comes to your website, and they see your website. They now are engaging with you in terms of your brand and your exposure. Remember, when I'm on Facebook, I'm looking at Facebook. I'm not seeing your brand. I may be seeing some of your brand elements. You may have your logo up there. You may have some pictures of your store, maybe posting pictures of your staff or your customers engaging with you. But that's really not you controlling your brand. Facebook is controlling that environment, okay? And so when you get someone from Facebook to come to your website, that's a huge win, okay? But it's half the battle. Once they come to your website, what are they going to do? How are you directing them, excuse me, how are you directing them to do something that you want them to do? The traditional, what we call call to action, CTA. So your call to action, your CTA, needs to continue to drive that traffic. So one thing that I'm going to recommend for you to do to save some time when it comes to being an entrepreneur is not directing traffic away from your website. So something that I see a lot of businesses do is they have those social media icons on their website. You probably have them, and it's not wrong. But just understand that putting prominent web links to social media directs traffic from your website away from it, okay? Think about, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying think very long and hard about where and how you are designing your website link to direct traffic. Once someone comes to your website, okay, do you really want them to leave your website? No. We know that time on site, the amount of time a visitor on your website spends, increases their chance of being interested in you and your product, and therefore interested in a sale. Well, if I give them a really flashy Facebook icon, I direct them from my website that is hard-earned traffic because I've had to pay, search engine advertising to be able to get someone there, or I've had to put lots and lots of content on my website to optimize it so someone can find me in organic search results. And they've shown up on my website, and then they immediately see a Facebook link, and they bounce, what we call leaving the website from a single-page view. They come to my website, they see the Facebook icon, they go to it, and now you've lost them. You've lost the opportunity for a sale because you've given them an out. You've given them something to do, which is to get back into their social mind, to think about their family and friends. And yeah, maybe they'll like your page now, but the reality is that what does that mean to you? You're just going to show up on their news feed and not really get very much more traction from them without a lot of additional content strategy. Don't try and waste a lot of your web traffic by directing them away. So just think about it. I'm not telling anyone to take down it. One common and easy suggestion is to actually set up your Facebook icon to open in a new tab or a new window so that people are not taken away from your website. They can go to Facebook, they can like the page, they can interact with it, and also then close the window and be back at your website. And or you can use what are called social plugins. These are little pieces of web code, web language that that the social network give you, and they allow you to be able to like and to share and to tweet all of those things directly from the website without you being taken away from it. It's very easy to implement, and again, you're controlling the traffic. It's about being able to control your brand and controlling the social media strategy. So bring people from social network to your website. That's a positive. Directing people away from your website without reason, not positive. All right? So where are you directing traffic? How are people flowing through your website and from social media? Figure all of that out, and you have really a strong social media strategy at that point. If you know what you're trying to get out of it, you can always fix that, just like sales. Sales is a numbers game. Try, you iterate, try, you iterate. Then what does your customer need? You know that you're giving them what they want or need, and you're consistently giving that to them in terms of content through social media. And then you're deciding on where your traffic is flowing. You can track those things with tools like Google Analytics, and then come back to the table and understand what's happening, and then make those changes to make more and more people convert to your CTA, your call to action. Okay, so if it's pick up the phone and call you, if it's buy something now, if it's sending you a contact form or an order form through your website, you know what you want them to do, and now you can watch your website and sort of tweak it until they do what you'd like them to do. Okay? So this brings me to the scientific method. As something of a scientist, I love thinking about the scientific method, and I'm not going to give a dissertation on the scientific method. You can just Google it. But the reality is that when it comes to implementing our social media strategy, the methods and skills to manage time with your social media is really a lot about turning these things into bits and chunks and turning them into sort of a process. So for yourself, you need to figure out what is the social media method for you. Is it that you're going to decide on doing particular activities at particular times so that you can go ahead and make those things happen? You can very easily take the scientific method, and with just a few word tweaking, you can go ahead and actually turn it into a very, very good social media method, okay? So in essence, if you take the question is, what's your customer's problem? You're solving those problems with social media, and so their social media is answering the frequently asked questions that people ask in social media. and then you just take it through the whole process. Hypothesis is what's your best guess in terms of what they want. Procedure, of course, then, and the experiment are, of course, going out there and asking your customers what they want, finding out what's going out there, market research. You go back and you do the data analysis, you find conclusions, and then you go ahead and you create a strategy for being able to do that. That's the summarizing and abstracting part. And then finally, presenting. Presenting is actually putting that content out there in front of your customers and your audience through social media to direct that traffic back to your website so that people are interested in your brand, product, service, what have you. So this is the time of the presentation when I get the opportunity to really, really geek out. So many of you who know me personally know that I'm a huge fan of personal productivity, the idea of self-management, if you want to call it that. But when it comes to productivity and organization, there is no better book for the entrepreneur than this book, Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity by David Allen. And I'll just give the typical disclosure that I give about Google or any other product that I'm usually talking about. This particular book is produced by David Allen. I have no official ties with David Allen, so that I'm not getting paid to talk about his book, but I really do believe that it is a wonderful methodology. And the idea behind it is that it's not a productivity system for time management. It's a completely sort of new perspective. Not a new perspective, but it's a compilation of perspectives, of techniques and tools that you can use that is sort of different than what we've been being told for the last probably 40 or 50 years of time management teaching. So traditional time management teaches us that we should manage our time better, and we should think about our mission, vision, purpose, and principles first, and sort of drive down from those. David Allen says that we have tons and tons of things going on, what's called open loops. These things are things that are commitments we've made to ourselves and to the world around us, and we need to capture and clarify those things before we go ahead and continue on the process upward, the horizontal axis of going from today's things to do to purpose and principles and missions and being very high level about our goals. So Getting Things Done is just a great methodology. It helps us understand that there's an action management method as opposed to a time management method. And so just think about that. Think about how you are trying to get anywhere. One thing that I typically do when I talk about getting things done or any productivity is that for you to be able to do anything in the world, you really do them through a process of next action, not through a process of large goal setting. So think about it this way. If I say, I want to buy a house, okay? Well, in essence, I can't buy a house. Have you ever walked up to a house and put money on the front door and then walked in it with a key? No. You actually have to do a couple of things, a lot of things probably. And, in line with that, you have to hire several people who will do many, many things behind the scenes. The first thing that you need to do is you probably need to call your mortgage lender to be pre-qualified so that you know how much house you can afford. You probably need to send an email off to your realtor of choice so that they can put together a couple of listings from the MLS and figure out where they'd like to take you around to see home. You see, the reality is that there's an action associated with buy a house. Buy a house is an abstract. It's a goal. It can't be done. But call your realtor or email your realtor or call your mortgage lender can be done. Those are physical, concrete actions that you can do, and you can do it right now. You need to do that with your social media, in essence. You need to be able to take all of the business things that you need to do in social media, and you need to think about, what is that thing that I have to do now? I know that I want to engage my customer on the highest level for X purpose, but really right now, what is it that I need to do? Do I need to set up a Twitter profile? Great. That will take me about 10 minutes. Now you can write that down on a checklist or somewhere that you trust you're going to come back to it, and you're good to go. All right, so really think about getting this book, thinking about how to implement the strategy, and then you can use these tools throughout your entire life and business, but also specifically regarding your social media. If you'd like to get into getting things done, I'm going to give you a couple of thoughts here, and I know that you're not going to have the background of having read GTD, Getting Things Done, the book Getting Things Done, beforehand. So I'm telling you these things. Take some notes down, and you'll be thankful you did if you do actually read this book. These are the crux of really what you'd like to get out of the system when you interact with it. So first is the power of the collection habit. David Allen talks about the idea that you should collect everything. You know, if something comes to mind, you want to get it out of your head and onto something that you trust, whether that be a task list or an app on your phone, or just a Word document on your computer. You need to get it out of your head so that you can have a clear mind to do the appropriate brain processes that are going on in the world. You need to have a clear mind when you're doing, and you need to plan separately from that doing activity. So collect really well. One of the things that he talks about is, of course, trusting those tools. So, of course, trust yourself, trust your tools, and trust your habits. And I'll get to the habit issue in a minute. Next is the power of the next action, which I've already talked about. But really think about the idea behind what is the next action. And each time people sort of get stuck in the idea of making these, you create a task list of things that you need to do on social media, and I need to write a blog about X or Y, or I need to tweet about this upcoming event. Those are not real next actions. Okay, those are projects at the best, and probably poorly written. The reality is you need to be very, very specific about how you're coining the things that you're going to be doing in social media, so that you can, one, do it yourself or delegate it to others. So think about the next action is, if I had to give this task to a 5-year-old, how would I give this task to a 5-year-old? You'd have to break it down to a very, very slow, slim, easily chunked concept, right? Well, that's what you really need to do with every one of your next actions. And I know that it seems like a lot of management, but it's no more management than you're already doing mentally. That's taxing you when you're trying to do as opposed to when you plan. So the idea here is to create the ratio of planning in a concrete, concentrated period of time so that you can do throughout the business day whenever you have discretionary time. Maybe you're in between a client appointment, you're standing in your retail shop, and you have about 5 minutes. You can look at your next actions list, and now you have a set of concrete things you can do between those things that you have to do, okay, which is greet that customer when they walk in the front door, or walk in the door to your next client appointment. Next, one thing about the next action is that we sometimes are a little bit too polite in American culture when it comes to holding people accountable. So I would just ask you, and then I'll move on, which is to say, are you being too polite with people regarding being accountable with them? And I mean that with regard to your customers, your employees, yourself, your partners, whether that be business partners or romantic partners in life if they're part of the business. Are you being too polite to hold people accountable? And that doesn't mean to be impolite. It's that you are being too polite, not being willing to say, have you gotten this done yet? Where are we on that? And how can I help you get there? Is there something more you need from me, for instance, to be, all of those things are really necessary in order to be able to be effective when you're trying to implement, especially a social media strategy, because sometimes you're waiting on information from other people. Sometimes you're trying to research something. You've delegated particular tasks to people, and they're dependent on things. So, big question. So what's the next action here? If you build a habit of really learning to ask that question quite often to yourself throughout the day, you'll be able to really take hold of the power of the next action. And finally, the power of outcome focusing. Power of outcome focusing is David Allen's concept of what I've put here, POBOI. You start with purposes and principles. You go down to organizing and outlining the project. You then brainstorm ideas in terms of how to execute that project. You organize it, and then you go ahead and identify next action. All right. You don't have to really understand this. When you read the book, it'll make sense to you, but really, really concentrate on that piece as well. And then, of course, I'm a huge fan of Dr. Stephen Covey, the late Dr. Covey, and thinking with the end in mind is something that you should really do. One of the 7 habits of highly effective people. Go out there, think with the end in mind. envision how your customers are going to, and potential customers are going to experience your social media. Okay, how are they going to receive that message from you, and now implement it from there? Okay, if you can envision it, you'll get there. And while I don't have time to explain this, look up SMARTer goals. Okay, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound, and then you go ahead and evaluate and reevaluate those goals. Using this methodology, go back to the strategy realm, on the first couple of slides, and really think about how you're implementing those goals through the SMARTer concept and applying those within your GTD system. Okay, so you can write your tasks, your projects. You can write your projects this way, and you can really get a lot out of it. But if you just want to, take heed of these little things, and then go back and read getting things done, you will be in a very, very good place regarding your time management. Okay, if you have any questions about GTD or any of those things, by all means, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm a huge fan when it comes to this stuff. I just love talking about it, so don't hesitate. Okay, so next up is me just highlighting the fact that habits are your friend. One of the things that people frequently forget when it comes to social media is that it really needs to become part of your daily life. And so really start thinking about how social media is going to be a part of your daily life. And for some people, that's a non-starter. And it's going to be very difficult for you. But you really need to figure out the discipline necessary to build a habit so that you can make these things really simple and low level for you to maintain. And that way you don't have to really think about it. But habits are really your friend. And if you can think about the social media habits that are necessary, when I talk about the next couple of slides, you'll understand, the habits necessary that I'm going to explain will really just start to be part of your life. You'll be able to just engage with your consumers on a much more fundamental level and a much more intimate level, which is what they want today because of those habits. Okay, so we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about listening, speaking, connecting, and measuring. We're going to talk about the editorial calendar and the power of the editorial calendar, and then, of course, the one social network at a time concept, because if you continue to try to do more than you can, you're just going to sink instead of swim. So listen, speak, connect, measure. I talked about community earlier as being all those people that touch you and your business. Well, there are 4 activities that I've listed here, but let's just talk a little bit about the concept of community. Community is founded on this psychosocial premise that we all want 3 things in life. We want to give things, we want to get things, and we want to feel a sense of belonging. Okay? We want to belong to something. The 3 activities that we use in social media are listening, speaking, and connecting in order to be able to do that giving, getting, and giving that sense of belonging. Okay? How are you making people feel a part of your community, right? So listening is purely the activity of going out there, reaching out to your audience, and we do that through search. So we use search functionalities within social networks, within Google, Yahoo, Bing, and the other search engines. We use the search within particular tools that we might be using, and I'll be talking about some of those tools shortly. And the idea behind this is that we go out there and we search for conversations. Those conversations are keywords or key phrase associated. That is, they would be about our business. They would be about our product, our service, our brand, our company name, your name, whatever people are talking about. We are searching for those terms that they would be using for us to be able to communicate with them. One way in which we do that is through the all-powerful RSS feed. The RSS feed is it colloquially stands for really simple syndication, but it's the technology that underpins blogging and allows us to be able to subscribe basically to many blogs in one tool, what we call a reader or a social reader, so that I can pull in my blog and I can see them all in the same place. I don't have to go to 15 different blogs every day to go read them. They show up inside of the inbox of my social reader, and now I can consume those in one centralized space. So we go ahead and we pull all these conversations in from, say, industry experts that you might have, competition, your customers even, if they have blogs that might be of interest to you. You pull them all in, and now you can read them, see if there's something that you want to comment on, that is, engage with them on, and you go and you click on the link. It takes you out to their blog, and now you can comment on it. All right? The commenting is showing that you're listening, right? Active listening is the process of hearing with your ears, processing with your mind, and typically repeating back to them what you've heard so that they are clear that you heard what they were saying. So if I say, hey, Ray, how are you today? And I hear, Ray, you're a jerk. And then I repeat back to Ray, Ray, I thought you said you were a jerk. Well, clearly there's a communication problem, and we need to work to get to a closer place to understanding that. So that's a very obtuse, very broad chasm to have to breach when someone says, how are you, and the other person thinks that you're insulting them. But the reality is that sometimes that happens in social media. There are cultural issues involved, language issues, and sometimes just the wording that we use sometimes can be vague as to give someone an impression that we may not want to give. So go out there and listen. We do that through searching for those topics. You might find tweets. You might find LinkedIn posts in LinkedIn groups as well. You might find Facebook posts that are public conversations going on or conversations happening on other organizations' pages. So if there's organization where your community is, I was talking about that earlier, right? You want to go where your customers are. You can go there and listen. Listening, of course, also is actively asking them what they want. Remember back to the strategy of your social media strategy. Go find those audiences where your people are. Go ask them what they want or need, and they'll then respond. They'll tell you. They're happy to explain to you what they want and need. Okay? Next up is speaking. Speaking is the idea of publishing content. I'm going to recommend that you start a blog. Everyone should have a blog as a small business. The reason I tell everyone to start a blog is that very few of you will actually do it, and so the market will actually play itself out. But if every single person on this webinar, and there's quite a few of you today, if all of you were to start and launch a blog, you would all see a dramatic improvement in the next 6 to 9 months in terms of your web traffic and the number of people who are communicating and engaging with your business. If you're effectively blogging, you would be directing traffic to your website. Directing your traffic to your website does what? It converts people from social media to your website. What happens on your website? Sales. Sales happen on your website. You control the brand. You direct the traffic. You figure out what people want. So speaking is a very powerful component of that. Okay? 3 is connecting. Connecting is just the idea that, like a web, your social network is really like a web of contacts. Everyone is connected to everyone by a few nodes, okay, from an ontological perspective. So if you think of a web and these connectors as people, the pieces, the points where people connect to one another are basically other people, and all of that somehow makes its way back to you as a hub, you want to create stronger and stronger connections between the people who are not yet connected to one another. The idea being then that the more of those connections that we create, the stronger the overall web. So you need to go out there and make those connections in social media. Now, the social network that you decide to use determines what kind of social network, what type of connecting you can do. For example, on Facebook, it's really difficult to create a lot of connecting as a Facebook page, a brand using Facebook. You really have to do that outside of Facebook and bring people to Facebook. Twitter, on the other hand, is completely opposite. You'll talk to strangers, absolute strangers, and it's all a public conversation. So having a public conversation is not a problem on Twitter. LinkedIn groups allow that also within a specific community. You can go into LinkedIn and you can have a conversation with someone publicly that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do in LinkedIn proper inside of the profile areas. So just think about how you are connecting people and then making those introductions publicly. Why do I say make the introductions publicly? Because that drives traffic. People get interested in people who are movers and shakers, people who are capable of connecting people. If you know that me, Ray, is really good at X or Y, and you know that Tracy is good at, A or B, but you know that neither of us has C, but together we can make that happen, then you want to connect us. But you do that publicly so that everyone sees that you are the person who knew these two people that were really great at two things. And so it provides more value to your community by being the person who can connect. All right. Finally, we have this thing in social media because of the digital realm where we can measure, and we always want to be measuring. So make sure that you measure. Okay, lots of the tools out there already do some measuring, and there are lots more tools that do more measuring, and I'm going to talk about some of those tools. But measure everything you can. You don't necessarily have to look at it all, but really you should have the tools implemented to measure as much as you can. So whether you're using YouTube or Facebook or one of the other tools that are out there, go ahead and make sure that you're implementing the tools. Google Analytics on your website, make sure that you have that implemented on your website. Make sure you're measuring. Okay, listen, speak, connect, and measure community. Finally, next up is the editorial calendar. And the editorial calendar is a very powerful tool. What it does is it looks at a calendar of 12 months, and it helps you plan forward your social media time. Okay? So let's set aside David Allen's concept of action management for a moment and go back to the traditional calendar. And the traditional calendar gives us 12 months. You know that 12 months from now, there's going to be another set of 12 months. Okay, we know that there are 12 months. That means January through December. It's not changing anytime soon. All right, you need to plan your social media on the broadest level at least a year in advance. I know it seems like a lot of work, but it's really not. It's probably an hour's meeting with your team. If you're a solopreneur, that's you getting together a couple of friends, colleagues, your spouse perhaps, and a couple of your customers, and sitting down, buying them all lunch or dinner, and really mapping out what's going to happen over the next 12 months. I'll just give you the clue here. One of the things that you want to do is to make sure that you look at your sales. If you have any sales history, look at your sales and put that on a calendar. So look at it from a timeline perspective. So do a line graph and show your sales, and you'll know where you need to be able to post lots of content which will match the peak in your sales about those particular verticals. So if you make a lot of money from selling X during March, then you know that about, whatever your sales cycle is actually. So if your sales cycle is 3 weeks before someone buys X, then you know that you need to start blogging about or posting on social media in general on, 3 weeks before that March date starts. So you can sort of ramp people up as they are getting interested and then finally start purchasing your product at that peak. Okay? Just look at that. A couple of things here that you want to pay attention to is that valleys should be using different product lines. You shouldn't try to what I call cannibalize your peaks with the same content later on down the road. So if you have a high peak and then you have a valley, you want to keep your peaks and you want to increase your peaks. Okay, make them spike in those periods. That doesn't necessarily mean that you want to shallow out the valleys by using the same content. You want to be able to create new, different content that's going to engage a different segment of your audience. Okay? All right, so the editorial calendar, 12 months, create broad-based themes. You're going to start a month level, or seasonal level, or period level, so that you have a particular, quote-unquote season, not the seasons of the year, but a particular period of the year where you focus on a particular thing. Well, that's a block of time where you're going to be blogging, where you're going to be posting on social media about that. Now you can structure your time to be working toward that. So you have your year mapped out now on the broadest level, and you decide that you're going to be able to do one post a week, one kind of social media push a week. And so then you decide that you're going to do that. You're going to structure your calendar so that you have a weekly post. You're going to know when you're going to draft that post, which typically I recommend people to get posts usually 8 to 10 weeks scheduled in advance. That's 8 to 10 weeks ahead of the social media push itself. That means that you should already have all of your Halloween, all of your winter holiday season stuff already scheduled in social media. If you haven't, that's fine, but next year is going to happen. And now you know that sometime around the end of August, you will have all of your Halloween and Christmas stuff getting ready to be posted and scheduled for the following season. You don't want to have to be posting at the same time you're in high sales peak seasons, right? So why do it? We have the tools now to be able to schedule these things so that you can get them scheduled, you can set it, not forget it, but really have it going in the background. And now all you need to do is respond and engage with people as opposed to having to do all of that publishing while you're trying to listen and connect with people. So really get your mind wrapped around the idea of using the editorial calendar to, one, know how far in advance you need in order to publish new content, know how far in advance you need to be for your customers to be engaged in the sales cycle leading up to a sale, and then knowing how far in advance you need to publish so that you are ahead of the game so that you can be really focused on sales and or whatever your focus is in the business at that time. You can be fully present as opposed to having to be doing multiple things and distracting you from the focus. Okay? The editorial calendar is your friend, just like habits. Okay, finally is the concept of one social network at a time. What I generally recommend is that you go where most of your customers are if you don't have a blog. Let's stand aside with your blog for a month. You don't have a blog. What you want to do is you want to go where most of your customers are, and you want to be engaging with them in social media. This is listening, right? Going out there and searching for people, finding where they are, and then going after them, talking to them, engaging with them with content. Okay, that means you're putting content on someone else's website, and you're socially engaging with them, and that's fine. It's what we call social commentary. It's not. It's one way that many bloggers increase their exposure, because they go where there are already bloggers with lots of communities, and they basically pirate their viewers away. But it's not really pirating your viewers away, because you're doing two really good things for the blog that already exists. You're bringing views to them, which is you, and you're providing content, which brings more traffic to Google to them. People who become aware of your blog through you blogging on another blog just equates to another subscriber, so that subscriber will continue to subscribe to the first blog, and now they'll subscribe to yours as well. Okay, so we're really not doing anything bad in terms of pirating. We're really just exposing yourself to it through social commentary. If you do have a blog, then what I really recommend is that you choose that one social network that you're going to be engaged in, and that social network is going to be one where you're creating a profile. Okay, so that means creating a Twitter profile, or creating a Facebook page, or creating a LinkedIn profile, company profile, or otherwise, or creating a LinkedIn group. You're going to decide on what that social network is going to be, and really use it alone for 6 to 9 months by itself. Don't try to do more than blog and invest in a social network. Okay, social networks come and go every day, and sort of the big 5 that are out there, which is Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Google+. Those guys are not going away anytime soon. Okay, to a great extent, I lump Instagram under Facebook because it's owned by Facebook. So think about it from that perspective. And so, as you're working on those social networks, really choose one. 6 to 9 months exclusively. Don't try and launch more than one social network at a time within the 6 to 9 month period. You plan for the execution, but really trying to invest and understand a social network. That is, logging into the social network every day. You, personally, the owner, must log into the social network every day and see its interface. Why do I say that? Social network interfaces change all the time. If you have any experience with Facebook, you know what I'm talking about. They change it all the time, and it's very frustrating, but it's a reality. 2 is that if you intend on delegating it, in 6 to 9 months from now, you'll be blogging, and you'll be active in a social network. And what you're going to find is that you're going to learn a whole lot more than if you were to just tell someone what to do when it comes to social media, okay, and to that particular social network. You're going to be able to tell them on a much more intimate level, you know what, Sally, I need you to do X and Y when it comes to engaging with these particular customers. Oh, and by the way, this particular person always comes on the page and says really nice things. Make sure you give them extra attention. If you don't do this, you will not be able to delegate effectively. So I really do recommend that you play with that one social network for 6 to 9 months yourself. Go in there and engage. After that time is up, then you're free to delegate it to someone else and try another social network, or just continue in that social network. I mean, you don't have to take on new ones if you don't want to. You have full permission to not take on multiple social networks. I don't believe that you need to, and quite honestly, I think that it's foolish because in some way, shape, or form, you need to build a community in one place, and that one place is your blog, okay? And otherwise, all of those other outlets for small businesses, specifically, if you're not Nike or Coca-Cola, so we're talking about you as a small business, you're looking to affect a community, and that community needs to be your own, okay? So I'm going old school here, back to your email list, to your website, and to your blog, okay? You need to build your community around those, that triumvirate of marketing, and making sure that you're controlling those pieces of the puzzle, and the social media components are really about engaging and pulling them closer to you through those tools, okay? So one social network at a time, one social network at a time, all right? So now I'm going to talk about some of the right tools for the right job. I've picked some very, very specific broad tools. I know there are many, many of them out there. I play with many of them throughout the day, but I'm only going to talk about these few so that we are staying within our time. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about the granddaddy of social media, and that is Hootsuite, okay? Hootsuite is good at listening, speaking, connecting, measuring just on the whole, all right? So it's just a full-bodied, small business-oriented and focused social network. You, as a single user, can, for free, use one account for each of the social networks, okay? So you have a lot of latitude with there. I know the interface feels bulky and it's glitchy at times, but it's really affordable being free for one user. Once you decide to bring on an additional user, I think it's like $15 or something like that, $5 to $15 is very inexpensive per month. So it's very affordable to bring on an additional staff member or additional 2 staff members so that you can log in and share those social networks with those people so that you can collaborate. You can assign particular tasks and networks to them within it, and you can also collaborate and engage in conversation, private conversation within Hootsuite about social media. So it can be really useful to just have this tool that just manages all of this stuff inside. Okay, next up is TweetDeck. TweetDeck is owned by Twitter, and it's really good at listening, speaking, and connecting, not so much measuring, but it will get there because Twitter is doing lots of measuring, and let's hope that once they go IPO and they go public, they'll provide better metrics tools to the public in general. But if you're on Twitter only, I really recommend it. It's a great tool for Twitter alone. The interface is sleek, and you can't beat the price. It's free. So next up is a tool that I love called Deliverr. Deliverr is a tool that actually helps you quickly and easily syndicate your blog posts through RSS, or any other RSS feeds for that matter, to your social media in general. So if you decide that you're going to publish a blog and you're just going to syndicate to Twitter and to your LinkedIn company page and to your Facebook page and so on and so forth automatically from your blog post to execute, speaking to your audiences in those worlds and bringing them back to your blog, Deliverr is a really great tool for being able to do that. It's free at one level, and you can do some of the tools with it. But I think in order to be able to post, say, to Google Plus, or to have more than, I think, the 15 feeds that you need, you have to go ahead and pay. Again, it's a very nominal fee, so you can go ahead and do that without breaking the budget. And so the price is reasonable. The interface is just plain as day, and it gives you lots and lots of measurements. It tells you how many connections you have and how many you've increased over a course of time. It gives you the ability to look at the number of posts you've put out there and the clicks you received based on those posts. And it just gives you lots and lots of great information that help you go back and really evaluate and reevaluate your social media strategy. Next up is the tool Feedly. We talked about social commentary, the idea of pulling in content from lots of different blogs that are important to your listening activities. And so you can go ahead and listen there, and then you can curate that content, that is, package it up and put it out there in your social media giving credit, obviously, to the people who you are curating, and then doing social commentary yourself, which is applying, your own thoughts to other content that is out there. Feedly came out and was out before, but really started doing this in the wake of Google Reader's demise, and they can't also beat this price because it's free. So with that, I'm gonna hand it back over to Tracy for any questions that people might have, and I'll answer any questions, and then we'll close out.
Thanks, Ray. We do have a couple of questions. Since you were just talking about tools, can you? I've got a question about how do you create a blog?
Okay, so that's a very, very big topic, and the topic of creating a blog can be as easy as going to blogger.com and setting up a blog there, to as complicated as installing one on your own website using a tool like WordPress or otherwise. So if you do have that question, I would probably ask you to just ask me offline, and I can potentially help you. My contact information is on the screen, and you can reach out to me that way. But it is a little more technical. If you are going to use Blogger, though, which is a Google product, make sure that you go ahead and create a CNAME record. Just write it down and ask your web person. But a CNAME record is basically blog.yourbusinessname.com. You don't want to use the blogspot address, okay? So it shouldn't be yourbusinessname.blogspot.com that you're publishing all over social media, because it could go the way of Google Reader someday, okay? So that means that if it disappears, well then you're left with all of these links that you've worked long and hard to create disappear. So make sure that you go out there and you create that CNAME record, that alias, for your website, so that your traffic is under your name. Okay?
Another question: as a small business, how often should you plan to blog?
Okay, that's a great question. So you should blog as often as you need to create the traffic for the goal you have in mind. So, for example, you should, as a standard bar, you should probably post once a week. Okay, and so you decide that you're going to put out a weekly piece of information. All right, that piece of information can be a piece of curated content. It could be social commentary. You going out there and just commenting on a specific blog. But you're going to go out there and listen, speak, or connect once a week out there in social media. All right. When you do that, though, how much traffic do you get from that particular interaction, that particular engagement? Well, if you get enough to support your business, great. 4 blog posts a month, 4 social comments a month does it for you. You can track those because you can see all of the measurement tools that I just talked about, including Google Analytics, where you can set up goals to see conversions to actual sales. And if they're not happening, then you need to increase your traffic. Now, the caveat there is that with blogs, it usually takes about 6 to 9 months of regular posting before you start to see any real traction and engagement, okay? So really think about it from that perspective. It usually takes about 6 to 9 months of regular engagement for you to do that. And then you can decide, okay, well, we're getting, X number of calls to action satisfied. People are doing what we want them to do when they come to our website X number of times. Well, we really wanted them to come Y number of times, which is 2 times X. So now I need to do 2X posts, which is I need to post twice a week for me to be able to get the appropriate traffic to satisfy my goal. You get what I'm trying to say here is you're doing it as often as you need to in order to get to that point, but no more. Because the reality is that you do any more than that and you're just wasting your time. So don't do those unnecessary posts if you don't have to. If 1 post a week does it for you, do 1 post a week. If 2 posts is necessary, then 2 posts is necessary. For one of my clients, that's posting 5 times a day. And they're short posts, they're little curated contents of things, and they drive a lot of traffic to the particular business's website, but it's required for that business and that industry. All right, so some are different, some are not so labor intensive, but I would say start with a week and then adjust from there. A little more, a little less there until you find the right number.
Ray, we've hit the hour. We've got a few more questions. Do you have a few minutes to stay around and answer those?
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Anyone who, of course, needs to
Right.
go, you can feel free to, but I'm happy to stay and answer the questions.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and close up for those people that do need to leave, but we will go ahead and answer those questions. Thanks, everyone, for participating today. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Today's webinar was recorded, and it'll be posted on the Virginia SBDC website under live webinars and recordings. Tomorrow, you'll be receiving a follow-up email on the webinar, and there'll be an evaluation in that email, a link to an evaluation. Please help us to improve our training by taking the time to complete the evaluation. If you want to fill it out now, I did put a link to it in the chat window. So thank you for attending today. So to follow up with some of the other, we have a couple of questions here, Ray, about localizing your social media. So if your target market is local to a specific area, can you design social media to that target? Or if your age, if the age of your audience is a certain age group, can you target that way?
Right. So that's on a social network by social network kind of perspective. When it comes to your blog, absolutely, you can go out there and you can design your website, and if your blog depends on website, therefore you can do it there. You can set up all of your optimization, your website optimization for your blog as well, so that it specifically tells people that you only want to be within that jurisdiction, that particular region. So yes, you can absolutely optimize to a specific area. You can tell Google and the search engine through effective search engine optimization where you are, and that helps localize the search. And the other side is that you can actually start to tell other networks that is, say if you're on Twitter, you can search on Twitter for only conversations happening within a 15-mile radius of a particular zip code, and therefore only engage with those people within that particular area. Now, that means that anyone in your public, anyone can come across your Twitter profile. But then in your Twitter profile, you should list your city and state, or the area that you service or that you provide products to, and make sure that when you are doing that, in the bio section, literally say, we only help people in these 5 counties. We only do X or Y in terms of whatever the particular localization is. And so you're giving people a very upfront expectation when they come to your social media presence across all of your various social media that you're only working in these particular local areas. Okay, so you do that through those things. Facebook gives you even a little bit more control in the sense that you can have a Facebook page and literally go in there and block anyone who doesn't fit into a particular age demographic or jurisdiction. So you can say, I don't want anyone outside of the United States to see my Facebook page. I don't want anyone outside of Virginia to see my Facebook page. I don't want anyone outside of this particular city to see my Facebook page. You can really be very, very specific when it comes to Facebook's exposure within the network. Again, your page is a public page on the web, so it will still be indexed, but the likelihood of someone being able to come to it from that location once they find it in an index like Google or otherwise and actually interact with it is limited.
Great, thanks. Do you have an office for consultations?
So I have an office in Arlington and an office in New York, and I would probably meet with most people by Skype. We could probably meet by phone or Skype initially. I don't particularly meet people in my own offices. I typically meet them in theirs, and that's a design by choice. I want to see what I'm working with. I like to see, if I'm in a retail space, I like to really see the retail space specifically, and also if it's a service-based business, I like to really talk to them in their own space. You're usually more comfortable in your own space, and I need to really have you comfortable in that space. So that's pretty much how I work.
Great. What social media strategies for real estate agents?
For real estate agents, I really look at Active Rain and think about what and how you're implementing your strategy with and in line with the industry of the bloggers that are in Active Rain. And as far as the strategy is concerned, that is one of the industries where you're going to have to post very often. I was talking about a particular client who posts up to 5 times a day in order to create the traffic. That's a very localized search engine strategy and social media strategy in line with it, because realtors are all real estate is local, right? But you're working on literally neighborhood by neighborhood interaction and engagement. So for realtors, you really want to look at each neighborhood that you're affecting and working within, and build your social media strategy around each of those neighborhoods. If your goal is to convert sales, whether that be rental or home sales, you are trying to get those people, in each of those particular neighborhoods. And people do look for homes and shop for, apartments from a neighborhood by neighborhood perspective. So really look at it from that and start from there. I can give you a full strategy, but I think that's a good place to start, and you'll be on the proper footing. So localize your social strategy and look at it from a neighborhood by neighborhood perspective.
Great. Thanks, Ray. That's all the questions we have. Thanks, everyone, for attending today.
Thank you, everybody.